This program proudly brought to you by Getaway Bank's complete range of home loans. Call Getaway Bank. We'd love to do business with you.
On Getaway tonight, the very best of the UK, from Scotland in the north to Cornwall in the south. The best and cheapest way to see the UK from top to bottom.
It's not far from here.
Gotta go, get away, gotta get away. Gotta go, get away, gotta get away, go. Gonna get away, get away.
Hello and welcome to Getaway, which tonight comes to you from latitude 59 degrees north, roughly in line with the cities of St. Petersburg and Stockholm. But I'm not in one of the great cities of Europe. I'm in the islands of Orkney, the northernmost part of the British Isles, from which my old mate David Rain and I will tonight bring you Great Britain from top to bottom.
That means I must be well and truly at the buttock, Land's End, the very tip of the island. But we are by no means the first people to do Britain from top to bottom. It is a journey that has inspired many a crazy record. One guy's walked it in just over 12 days. Another guy's done it in a wheelbarrow. Took him about 30 days. Another guy's run it backwards. Those crazy Poms. But we won't be doing anything like that, I can assure you. And between here and where Watto and I eventually meet up are some of the most beautiful parts of Britain.
Yes, David, I'm looking forward to having a beer with you in London, but meantime, I'll be bringing you Scotland's most surprising new city. I'll be looking at some of the Bronte country in Yorkshire. I'll be showing you the shimmering lights of Blackpool and sitting briefly in the lap of the English aristocracy.
Meanwhile, I'll be heading east through the towns and villages of Cornwall, Devon, into Portsmouth, and then out off the coast to the Isle of Wight.
Yes, it's a lovely little spot, David, the Isle of Wight. So tonight, the best of the old dart, plus essential things to do in London. So let's start at the top. You know, it's very strange. There are no bagpipes, no kilts, no clans, no tartans, no haggis even, but we are in Scotland. The people who live here, however, call themselves Orcadians, and if they're inclined towards anyone, it's less towards Scotland and more towards the Vikings. Orkney is a group of 70 islands just north of the Scottish mainland. It's home to about 20,000 people, but every year Orkney welcomes 6 times that many visitors. Kirkwall's the main town here, but it's a main town with no crime, no hard drugs and no violence. Barely enough work to keep Orkney's 10 police officers occupied. And while this is about as busy as it gets, you've got to wonder whether the pace of life here has changed much since 3000 BC. These stones are the beginning of a Neolithic heartland that spreads all the way down into England, to Stonehenge in fact. But they're very, very old. Think of it this way. Take your grandparents and then go back 200 generations. They're older than Stonehenge, older than the Great Wall of China, older than the Parthenon. And I guess that's pretty old. The stones of Stennis were put here to declare this a place of worship. So it's no wonder they chose such a beautiful spot between Lochs Stennis and Harry. Customs in Orkney. Somebody's actually getting married, so they smeared themselves with treacle. What's the significance of the treacle? Why treacle?
Is it black? It's black. May I see? It's black. Yeah. It takes weeks to get me in here.
So why does the bride cop this while the groom follows in a very clean car? Why haven't they put treacle on you?
It gets done yet. They do me yet. They'll do me yet. Yeah.
And what else? Do they do anything special to you? I mean,
They'll probably tie me naked to the market cross.
naked? You have some fun in Auckland, don't you?
Certainly do.
Well, let's hope they remember to untie him so he can get here on the big day. This is St Magnus Cathedral, which dates back to 1137 when Orkney was a Norse colony. This is the northernmost cathedral in the British Isles, and you really don't expect to find something quite so magnificent in such a remote spot. But after all, it should be good. They spent 300 years building it. This bell came from the HMS Royal Oak, which was sunk not far from here in Scapa Flow by a German U-boat in World War II. 833 crew were lost. The Royal Oak is not the only ship to have gone down in Orkney waters. There are about 2,500 shipwrecks, including the remains of the German fleet interned here at Scapa Flow in 1919. If you're staying in Orkney, I wouldn't go past a B&B. There's a good range and they're reasonably priced. At $60 per person per night, Paul Rudden Guest House is clean and comfortable. But it's time for me to leave behind the white cliffs and stark treeless landscape and head south to Scotland's biggest city, bonnie Glasgow. The word Glasgow means a dear green place, but that's a far cry from the way I remember this city.
When I first came to Glasgow more than 30 years ago, I was driving my car along this street, Sauchiehall Hall Street, in broad daylight, when somebody tried to throw a bottle through the window. Glasgow's always been a tough old town. It's the home of the Glasgow kiss, the headbutt. It used to have some of the toughest slums in Britain, the Gorbals, but today it's got a new reputation as one of the most cultural cities in the whole of Europe.
In 1990, Glasgow was named the City of Culture by the European Community, and it looks as though it's given the city the boost it needed. Unlike Orkney, Glasgow and its neighbours thrive on the more traditional Scottish customs. This is Inverary Castle, home of the Duke of Argyll. For the last 150 years, his family have kindly allowed the annual Highland Games to be held in their backyard. I must confess, I've always fancied myself as a potential piper. Lance Corporal Peter McFarlane makes it look pretty easy. Surely it can't be that hard.
I think we should take it out and shoot it.
You have to catch it first.
I think maybe I should stick to things I do well, including eating.
And this, of course, is that great Scottish delicacy, the haggis. This one's been shot fresh this morning. It's normally served inside a sheep's stomach, but I prefer it in a tatey, or a baked potato.
And with a full stomach, but thankfully not a sheep's stomach, inside my stomach, it was time to take in some of the culture Glasgow now boasts. Now, this is a place you could spend hours and hours, the Burrell Collection. All these works were gathered by one man, a wealthy industrialist named Sir William Burrell. He donated 8,000 pieces to the city, and they're now housed in this fabulous museum a few kilometres from the city centre. And the city centre is where you'll find the Glasgow Thistle. This mid-range hotel will cost you about $300 per double per night, including breakfast. Well, I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised by the new Glasgow. What was once a grubby, dangerous city is now charming and sophisticated. Glasgow's certainly worth exploring, but don't stop there. Scotland's a place you need to explore. Head out to the cities and towns and see Scotland for what it truly is. Beautiful lochs, glens and hills, endless green fields and dramatic cliffs. Orkney is a 2-hour flight north of Glasgow. British Airways return airfares from Glasgow to Orkney start at about $135. Qantas and British Airways fly daily to London with British Airways connections to Glasgow. Return airfares start at $1,885 from the East Coast, Adelaide and Perth.
Next up, Cornwall, the English tropics, where the British go to get a tan. Welcome to the amazing British summer and the beautiful Cornwall coast. At least, I'm told it's beautiful. I'm just having a little trouble seeing it through the drizzle today. But I have been assured it's going to fine up. So we're going to spend a couple of days and explore the area the British come to holiday. We're going to follow the 40-kilometre section of the coast path from Penzance to St Ives. We're cheating slightly by starting at St Michael's Mount, 5 k's east of Penzance, but we think it's worth the detour. This castle was once occupied by a bunch of Benedictine monks, but the St Alban family have been in residence since 1659 and very graciously allowed tourists to traipse through their home every summer. The first stop of our journey is the harbour town of Penzance. Penzance's major claim to fame would be as the home of Gilbert and Sullivan's Pirates of Penzance. But perhaps the real pirates were the smugglers who used to gather here in this hotel in the 18th century. And what a perfect place to base their operations from, surrounded on 3 sides by the sea and by the moors to the north, ideal for distribution of goods and for escape. And escape was made even easier by the fact that there existed and still exists today a tunnel from beneath the pub out into the harbour just a pebble toss away. The Union Hotel is typical of the accommodation around here. There's no lift, so if you travel with a lot of luggage, request a lower floor room. This is the place where news first broke of Lord Nelson's victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. Next stop is Mousehole, strange name for a quaint little fishing village. Now, when I read the name of this town, it spells Mousehole to me. How do you say it?
Mousehole.
Ah, so the Cornish is Mousehole.
Mousehole. Yeah. And the holiday people come down and say it Mousehole.
Yeah. Like I do.
Yeah.
Like Mousehole.
Yeah.
I am a tourist.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of fascinated by British food. What is classic British fare? They have such delights. Bubble and squeak, Yorkshire pud, Cornish pasties. I guess it's got to be fish and chips. At least here on the Cornish coast, the specialty is fish, though this is a departure from the norm. But whatever you're eating, you got to wash it down with a lager. Flat and warm. I wish I could say the same for the ocean, although it's certainly flat. But temperatures of 14 degrees won't stop these poms from pretending it's hot. Gotta love them. Time to hit the road again, this time to Britain's most southwestern point. This is the part of Land's End we didn't show you before, the theme park bit. It's all souvenir and audio-visual reenactment. Once you get past the tourist trap, it is quite spectacular, but try explaining to the kids that this is the good bit. I have seen a few theatres in my time, but this, well, it's like no other. The Minnock Theatre is 11 kilometres southwest of Penzance, and the story behind it is as mind-blowing as the views. The Minnock is the brainchild of Rowena Cade. In 1931, she began building the theatre with the help of 2 others. This frail-looking woman worked on the theatre each winter in all weather, right up until her mid-80s. She was still working on plans when she died, just before her 90th birthday. A ticket to the Minnock will only cost $15, and you can bring a picnic dinner along. Now that's a good, cheap night out. Day 2, and I'm off to St Ives, the creative corner of Cornwall. Well, I was thinking of doing the impossible in England, and that is to go for a surf, but it's flat. There is, however, a recreational alternative right here in this sleepy little backwater. The Tate Gallery, of all things. This is a branch of the Tate in London. It presents modern art created in or associated with Cornwall. And like all modern art, it needs to be viewed a certain way. You can have a look around here on your own, or there are free guided tours Monday to Friday at 2:30 p.m. and Saturdays at 3. Now here is a superb example of classic British fare, the Cornish pasty. And to my delight, I've discovered they don't have to include peas. I hate peas. I've also discovered that my whole life I've been calling them incorrectly. They're a pasty, not a pasty. The pasty wasn't bad, but there's still a bit of a hole that needs filling.
Good afternoon, sir. What can I get for you?
Do you have Devonshire tea?
No, sir, not a Devonshire tea. We do a Cornish cream tea.
And what is that?
Cornish cream tea is our homemade scones, which are in the round, served with raspberry jam and Cornish clotted cream.
Sounds and tastes just like Devonshire tea to me, but I've learnt my lesson and I know not to ask for a Cornish cream tea when I'm in Devon. Well, I've got to say I'm very impressed with Cornwall. Driving is definitely the way to see it properly. Magnificent countryside, quaint cobblestone villages, and some really pretty beaches I didn't believe existed. Cornwall is 500 kilometres west of London. Qantas Holidays has fly-dry packages including return airfares to London, a return flight from London to Europe, and 7 days shared car hire within the UK, starting at $1,885 per person from the East Coast, Adelaide and Perth.
Coming up after the break, the north of England. We're in Yorkshire, England's biggest county, home of Captain Cook, Yorkshire pudding, the Bronte sisters and stately homes like this. And guess what? His lordship's asked me to stay the night. Isn't that nice of him?
Sir Thomas Ingleby and his family have been calling Ripley Castle home for the past 700 years. That's 26 generations of Inglebys. I felt quite privileged to have the Lord of the Manor take me on a tour of his humble abode until I realised this is how he earns his living.
And you've got something over here to show me.
Yes, this is the secret priest's hiding hole.
Roman Catholics weren't very popular in the 16th century, so if poor old Father Francis Ingleby had been found by the Protestants, he wouldn't have lasted long.
He must have been a very small priest.
Very small, but the average height was only about 5'4" in those days. And it's even complete with the original cloth between the hinges, so that the person inside there could light a candle and light wouldn't escape through the gaps in the panelling and give his position away.
They thought of everything, hadn't they?
Well, pretty well everything, except if you spent a very long time out there, there was no water closet.
The Ripley Castle estate includes, well, virtually the whole village, which explains why you get a free tour of the castle when you stay at the Boar's Head Hotel. From Harrogate, we travelled about an hour south to Haworth, home of the Brontes, Charlotte, Emily, Anne and brother Branwell.
These Brontes were a tragic bunch. 3 of them died of tuberculosis, none of them saw the age of 40, and one, poor old Branwell, was a drug addict. In fact, this is the chemist shop where he used to buy his opium.
The family moved here in 1820. The house where Charlotte wrote Jane Eyre and Emily wrote Wuthering Heights attracts about 100,000 visitors each year. And this is Top Withens, Emily's inspiration for Wuthering Heights. Some people believe Heathcliff and Cathy are still out here.
Cathy! Cathy! It's Watto!
Well, maybe she's at the pub. I'll go and have a look.
Yorkshire pud. Not like those heat and eat things you get in the supermarket. This is made in a perfect ellipse. It's designed, they tell me, by an angel. It's made using cold water, or for the best results, snow, and it is an essential part of the Yorkshire experience.
It's time to leave Yorkshire and head due west, an hour into Lancashire.
Every time there's a big festival, a beacon is lit up here because it's synonymous of the Pendle Witches.
1612 was a time of religious persecution and superstition. Mary Parker believes that's why 5 women from this area were accused of being witches.
So, Mary, that's Pendle Hill behind us. Now,
It is?
Yeah. What's the significance of that?
Well, it's actually where the witches travelled on their way to Lancaster, where they were executed.
But that's not the worst of it. Wait till you hear the witch's name.
Where Alice Nutter, the main witch...
Now, wait a minute. Alice Nutter.
Yes.
It's a rather unfortunate name.
Very much so. And that's what most people say. And there are still nutters living, actually, in the area today.
I think that's my cue to get out of here. Next stop, England's #1 seaside resort, Blackpool. Although if I'm trying to avoid nutters, that mightn't be such a smart choice.
Richard, how you feeling? Oh, pretty good, pretty good.
One guy who definitely fits the bill is Richard Rodriguez. We caught up with him when he'd been on this roller coaster for 39 days straight, 836 hours. He was trying to break his own world record.
As far as sleeping, I sleep on the ride at night. I pad the car with pillows and this and that, and I try to sleep and get as much as I can. So,
good luck to you. You gotta go.
All right, thanks. Bye.
I'm happy to report that Richard achieved his goal of 1,000 hours and he's now off the Big Dipper.
There are 49 beaches in Britain to get the blue flag. That's the sort of seal of approval, means the beach is safe and clean. Well, Blackpool ain't one of them. Look at it. It's a lovely shade of brown.
So why do 17.2 million people come to Blackpool each year? Maybe it's for the ballroom dancing, which is at the bottom of Blackpool's very own Eiffel Tower. Nah, can't be that. Maybe it's for the views from the tower. I don't think so. Maybe it's for the food? Oh, I doubt it. My wife got food poisoning last time we were here. I know, it's got to be the weather. Blackpool's definitely tacky, but it's also fun. It's where the Scots and the Northerners come annually for holidays. Why? Because they always have. Blackpool provides a stark contrast to the quaint villages and the lush green countryside of other parts of northern England. And I think it's all worth seeing.
For me and you.
Blackpool is 375 kilometres northwest of London. The British Airways world's favourite holiday book has nightly hotel accommodation in northern England starting from $145 per person twin share and bed and breakfast passes starting from $54 per person twin share.
Coming up, since this is the yachting capital of the world, I've decided to tour around it by bike. The Isle of Wight. Your chance to win a 7-day trip to Florida and off to the Greenwoods with Watto and his merry men. Portsmouth, not necessarily high on the list of priorities of the tourist visiting Britain, particularly not in weather like this, but if you're a keen aficionado of the boat, this is where it all happens. Admiral Lord Nelson sailed from here, the First Fleet sailed from here, Sir Francis Chichester sailed from here. This is the home of the Royal Navy. Roll, Britannia! The HMS Victory was commissioned in 1759, and her most famous triumph was at the Battle of Trafalgar 46 years later.
Now, this is a very grand cabin. Yeah, this is actually Admiral Lord Nelson's cabin, where he'd actually live on board the ship. And all the furniture here, is it original furniture?
Most of it is reproduction, but the one we're standing in front of now is the actual table where Lord Nelson sat and wrote a famous last prayer just before the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805.
May the great God whom I worship grant to my country and for the benefit of Europe in general a great and glorious victory, and may no misconduct in any one.
This is where Nelson died, a few hours after he was shot on the deck by a French sniper. The usual practice was for men to be buried at sea, but, and here's the thing, the Admiral didn't like the sea, so he asked to be buried at St Paul's Cathedral. The surgeon put him in this barrel, filled it with brandy and preserved him until they were able to return him to England.
Kevin, my grandfather served in the Royal Navy and is apparently buried in the Naval Cemetery here somewhere. Where would
Really?
I find that?
Oh. Yeah, that would be over in Gosport. It's the cemetery over there is Haslar Hospital.
This is Britain's first and last iron-hulled warship, the HMS Warrior. Built in 1860, she made every other battleship obsolete virtually overnight. These days, the Warrior is regularly used as a film set and for corporate and private functions. The third great battleship hasn't held up quite as well as the Victory and the Warrior.
The Mary Rose here was apparently King Henry VIII's favourite ship. She was named after Henry's sister, Mary. She was built between 1509 and 1511. In 1545, she accidentally sank whilst engaged in battle with the French. In 1982, she was raised, placed in this cradle, and brought back here where she now sits beneath the mist of preservatives in order to prevent her from cracking and drying up.
Apart from the ships, there's really not a whole lot to see in Portsmouth, which suits me because I don't really have that much time here and I'd really like to find my grandfather's grave.
Rear Admiral Sir Cecil Nugent Raine. You do? Terrific, thank you very much.
I never knew my grandfather, but I'm sure he could have told me some wonderful stories of his life. It was through that little square entranceway there that the convicts boarded the first fleet to sail out to Australia. And of course, Portsmouth is the point of embarkation. You can go from Portsmouth to France, to Spain, to points around Europe. But today, we're going to the Isle of Wight. It was suggested to me that I tour the Isle of Wight by bike. Not a bad idea. Apart from the helmet, I mean, does anyone look good in these things? But the Isle of Wight, I'm discovering, is not the small island I expected it to be. So, enough of the idle chat. Better get cracking. Hurry-ho! Well, OK, so it's not that big. It's only 37 kilometres long and 20 kilometres wide, but you try covering all that ground by bike in one day. This is the Royal Yacht Squadron, Mecca to the sailor, probably the most famous yacht club in the world. We're at Cowes, and we've just missed the hottest event of the year, Cowes Week, an international yachting event that attracts not just the finest sailors in the world, but all those people who just want to be seen. Yarmouth is also appealing. More sailing boats, nice dogs, relaxed people, and a beautiful place to stay. Yep, I could be happy here. But can't stop, no time to waste today. There are still plenty of places to see. Like the thatched cottages in Godshill and St Agnes Church at Freshwater, one of the few thatched churches you're ever likely to see. Allen Bay is known for its coloured sands and the Needles, which are the three rocks jutting out of the water. There used to be a fourth, which looked more like a needle, but it fell over. Which is what I'm looking forward to doing tonight at the Bassini B&B. Just a 2-minute walk from the heart of Cowes, rooms even have their own showers. Portsmouth holds a special significance for me because my grandparents lived here, but anyone who has an interest in maritime history is sure to love the place as well. And when you're here, you'd be mad not to buy a $20 ferry ticket and duck across to the magnificent Isle of Wight, which arguably has some of the most spectacular scenery in the whole of Britain. Portsmouth is 118 kilometres southwest of London. The British Airways World's Favourite Holiday book has nightly hotel accommodation in Portsmouth starting from about $117 per person twin share, and bed and breakfast passes start from $54 per person twin share.
Coming up on Getaway, the legend of Robin Hood. Well, we've been to Sherwood Forest, but how much of the story is really true? We're now in the middle of England, or more correctly, the East Midlands, about a 3-hour drive from London. To the west, we have North Wales. North of here, we have the cities of Manchester and Liverpool. We're just outside Nottingham, which is, of course, Robin Hood country.
It was forbidden to kill the king's deer. Gisborne would kill one of the king's deer, and he would blame it upon Locksley's son, Robin Hood.
This is Sherwood Forest. Unfortunately, it's been neglected and exploited, and what was once 40,000 hectares is now a mere 182. Poor old Robin Hood wouldn't have too many places to hide from the sheriff's men these days.
One tree that has survived with a few patch-up jobs is the major oak, reputed to be the tree under which Robin Hood frequently met Maid Marian. It's supposed to be 800 years old.
Right, I've got another prisoner, have I? That's it, come up here, stand in front of me here. You better behave yourself.
The Galleries of Justice gives you a good insight into 2.5 centuries of British law and order.
Well, if you could strip off for me. That's the first thing to do.
No, I can't really just put my clothes on.
Oh, no, you need to strip, young man, and get yourself in this bath here.
Okay,
see? And bathe with the soap.
The carbolic?
Yes, that's right.
No, I had a shower this morning.
Well, get rid of all your fleas, sir, because I can see if you're jumping there. That's a nice watch as well, isn't it, sir? You want to keep hold of that.
Why?
There's a lot of thieves in this prison, you know.
Tickets are about $10 each, and the exhibition's really interactive and can be enjoyed by all ages.
Some original graffiti from the period. Valentine Marshall, charged with arson, transported for life in 1832, ended up a gardener in Tasmania.
Pub tours are also popular. As the name suggests, Ye Olde Trip to Jerusalem Hotel is one of Britain's oldest. This cursed galleon above the bar has been here for 200 years, and by the look of it, so have these cobwebs. But when you consider its reputation, it's hardly surprising no one's been game to give it a good clean.
If anybody touches the curse, you are dead in 28 days. And so it was taken down from the ceiling itself on a big hook and dropped into that glass case, complete, as you can see, with its cobwebs.
I think I might. I think I'll respect it. I think I won't touch it.
Well, I wouldn't.
I think I'll pass on that.
I wouldn't either.
For as little as $4, you'll be shown all the nooks and crannies and hear plenty of good stories. However far-fetched they may seem.
And we've got 3 ghosts down here.
Three
Rosie, the 5th step along there.
Who's Rosie?
She's a 5-year-old Victorian little girl, and she's a dreadful little nuisance for moving your keys. You noticed I've never let go of these keys, because our Rosie, you can find them upstairs or anywhere. We've got another ghost on this side here, ghost of a cavalier.
Unfortunately, Nottingham Castle hasn't survived as well as the pubs. I mean, it looks fine, but that's because you're looking at a mansion built in 1674. The castle was in fact demolished after the Civil War, so even though this is still called Nottingham Castle, it's really just a big house.
This is one of the dungeons at Nottingham Castle. Bit like my hotel room, actually. See what I mean?
The Rutland Square Hotel is in the middle of town, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who's claustrophobic. But then, why stay in your hotel? Nottingham's really a vibrant, energetic city. There are lots of reasons to come here. Just ask the locals.
My flowers.
The pubs?
Definitely the girls.
The buildings.
The beer.
The lads. The ice blocks.
Nottingham is 205 kilometres north of London. Qantas Holidays has 6-night packages, including accommodation at a Country Rover bed and breakfast, a return flight from London to Europe, and 7 days shared car hire within the UK, starting at $2,249 from the East Coast, Adelaide and Perth.
Let's face it, some days life just seems to be the same old routine.
Good morning!
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
And then there are times when things just aren't what they should be. When everyone knows what's happening, except you.
Why don't you let me fix you some of this new Mococo drink? All natural cocoa beans from the upper slopes of Mount Nicaragua, no artificial sweeteners.
What the hell are you talking about? On September 24, Australia will see the premiere of The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey and directed by Australian Peter Weir. It is the story of Truman Burbank and his idyllic life in the town of Sea Haven. A life which has made him the unwitting star of the most popular soap opera on American television.
It's The Truman Show!
To coincide with the launch of the film, Getaway and United International Pictures are giving away a 7-day holiday to Florida. Next May, 2 people will fly economy class with Qantas and spend 6 nights in Key West. You'll stay at the luxurious Pier House Resort and Spa, and in Truman Show style, you'll have your own private photographer to record your stay. All you have to do is call 1902 554 629 and register your details. The phone lines will be open until midnight, Monday, September the 7th, and we'll be announcing the winner on the show on September the 10th. Florida in spring, you can't go wrong. Coming up, 5 things to do in London.
Hang on, I'm doing that.
What?
5 things to do in London.
Well, that makes
10 things to do in London.
While you're here, there are 10 things you must do. Here they are.
Brian here is a London cabbie, but not just any London cabbie. He's a blue badge guide, which means that he can tailor a tour to your specific needs. Brian, I feel like a cup of tea. Where do you go for a good cup of tea?
Good cup of tea? I'll take you to the best place in London for a good cup of tea.
Taxi tours cost about $70 and you can make them as short or as long as you like. But when you're planning your trip, remember to allow for London traffic. Well, it may be the best cup of tea in London, but it's only for cabbies. But if you don't fancy standing around drinking tea, try London's ultimate retail therapy. Sugar?
Sugar.
Napoleon said that Britain was a nation of shopkeepers. That may or may not be true, but it's certainly a nation of shoppers. Harrods, of course, is required viewing. You may not be able to afford the prices, but if you can't get it here, you probably can't get it anywhere.
It's sale time at the moment. Harrods insisted we mention that because the store's normally much neater than this. Harrods is open 7 days a week, so make sure you allow yourself plenty of time to have a good look around.
And when you're through looking around Harrods, take a look at some more stuff you won't be able to afford. There are galleries galore in London, and the good news is it won't cost you anything to check them out. The Portobello Road area is a good place to start.
Changing the guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice, and Watto, of course. This is one thing you've got to see when you're in London.
The changing of the guard happens every day in May and June, and every other day from July through April. It starts at 11:30 a.m, but I'd suggest you get here by 10:30 to get a good position.
The Soho district is nightlife, it's restaurants, it's the red light area, it's groovy, it's upmarket, it's très chic. And the Zilly Fish restaurant is the place to be seen. You'll find Soho right in the middle of London, and don't worry about its sleazy reputation. Those days are long gone.
To use the vernacular, this is a big six-wheeler, scarlet painted diesel engine, 97 horsepower omnibus. They've been going since 1951. They've carried 40 million passengers, and it's still one of the best ways of seeing central London.
A one-day ticket costs about $35 and lasts a full 24 hours. Just choose one of 4 different routes and you can jump on and off these big red buses as often as you like.
The Rock Circus at Piccadilly Circus is home to Madame Tussauds collection of wax pop stars. 2, 3, 4, gentlemen.
The commentary and music in your headphones changes as you come face to face with the rock legends. Tickets are about $22 for adults and $11 for children.
London is the centre of the English-speaking theatre. There are more than 50 theatres in the West End alone, so even if you're not a regular theatre goer, you'd be a mug not to try and get a ticket for something.
Tickets aren't cheap, but the half-price box office in Leicester Square will usually save you a few quid.
At number 9, Camden Town Markets. They're a bit like Harrods in that whatever you want, you should be able to find it here. The difference, though, well, style for one thing, and you can pick up a bargain here.
The top of any list, and certainly mine, however, should be that you must visit at least one English pub.
There you go, Watto.
David.
Another thing, you know, my little trip down south, I wasn't quite expecting the splendour of the English countryside and the English coast. Beautiful. They've cornered the market on quaintness.
They have indeed. And of course, the other thing is that, you know, the accents in this country change not just from town to town, from street to street. We're up in, you know, in Blackpool. They sort of talk like that, you know. It was the most vulgar place I've ever been to. And then we went up to Scotland, and it's all sort of, it's people wearing dresses and carrying on with the trees bent sideways by the wind. It was very exciting.
Very odd.
Very
odd people. You know, but really, I reckon Australians understand England.
You think?
They understand that the weather's not so good, that the food's a bit strange, that the pommies are a bit weird.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
It is expensive.
But really, it's a beautiful country. If you get into the countryside, it's absolutely beautiful. But also London. I love London. I think it's a very energetic town. It's a very creative town. Lots of energy, lots of things happening. Save your money. Come over.
And you bought me a present.
I've got you a present, what? You want to see what it is?
Oh, yes. What is it? Good night.
Hi, this is Katrina Roundtree. I hope you've enjoyed the UK from top to bottom. Do you need a fact sheet? Well, call 1902 210 210 and we will send you what you need. Drop us a line at PO Box 50, Willoughby, New South Wales 2068, but don't forget to include a stamped, self-addressed envelope. If you call 1902 210 002, we can fax you the information. And if you check out our website at getaway.com.au, you can download information from tonight's or any show this year. And for even more information on Britain, you can call the British Tourist Authority on 02 9377 4477. We are back to our usual format next week, so we will see you then.
Next week on Getaway, going downhill in New Zealand, the secrets of an Australian island, and wandering the wineries of South America.
This program proudly brought to you by Medway Bank's complete range of home loans. Call Medway Bank. We'd love to do business with you.